welcome, welcome. Welcome to Hoops and Homes, We Will Win, Black and Hispanic Family Series. Our goal and our focus is to show Black and Hispanic families, Black and Hispanic families, how we can get to 75% home ownership by 2035. In addition, show Black and Hispanic families that currently we spend over $3 trillion a year in this country. $3 trillion go through our hands. 3 trillion dineros go through our hands every year in this country. And our goal to show if we start investing that into our community, business owners that look like us, then we can grow that 3 trillion to 20 trillion by 2035, which is currently the GDP of the United States is $20 trillion. So that's what our focus is. And you have a picture of my hero, somebody that, so excited to talk about every time. Unfortunately, so many people of color never heard of Reginald Lewis, but Reginald Lewis was a multi-billion-dollar business enterprise creator back in the 80s. And he was a billionaire. He had formed several different businesses. He was a superstar down on Wall Street. He was an attorney, and he wrote this fantastic book that I believe everybody should read. Everybody should read this book. Why should white guys have all the fun? Why should white guys have all the fun? I put a spin to it for my 2021 version is why should white folks have all the fun? We in the Black and Hispanic community need to join them and have fun along with them on enjoying the American dream and achieving the goals and the dreams that all Americans have for them and their families. So that's my spin. And let Mr. Williams speak for himself. He's just incredible entrepreneur, credible business person, and a pioneer.
From modest beginnings in Baltimore, Maryland, to an international billion-dollar empire.
My grandfather said, know your job, and I can promise you'll never be in a bread line.
Since the beginning, Reginald F. Lewis was destined for success.
I signed him up for CAM. And he said, who's going to take care of my business? And I said, I will. And the first thing he said when he walked through the door, where's my money?
A man with an unconventional approach to conventional institutions.
I was told that he is the only person to get into Harvard Law School without formally applying.
The thing I admired about Reginald Lewis, he was a take charge kind of a guy. The sheriff reached for me. Reggie grabs the sheriff's arm and said, wait a minute, who are you? I'm the high sheriff, who are you? And I'm Reginald F. Lewis, I represent Reverend Chambers. Yes, he was a Wall Street, highly trained corporate lawyer, but he was a strong freedom fighter for civil rights.
He was Jesse Jackson's first big funder, handing Jesse Jackson a $100,000 check, unsolicited.
Reg Lewis, in many ways, was the Jackie Robinson of business.
I have to admit, when I first met Reg, I wasn't told that he was Black. There weren't that many Black entrepreneurs in New York City at the time.
He bought 64 companies in 31 countries for almost $1 billion. So in that sense, he is a pioneer.
The fact that we were able to close a gargantuan deal, given its international character, was just, it was absolutely off the charts.
There is no doubt that Reginald Lewis's success paved the way for me and many others. And I think that really is the test and demonstration of real leadership.
Keep going to build a better society in America, to be a compassionate America, that you keep going no matter what. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Pioneers, Reginald F. Lewis and the making of a billion-dollar empire.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. He was a pioneer for sure, and a hero of mine. My experience into civil rights came right at this point. This is the 1968 garbage strike. This is El Barrio, East Harlem in Manhattan. And this is my street. The second big building on your left-hand side, the projects, was my building. And I remember this day like it was yesterday, or I remember this time period like it was just yesterday. The city had a sanitation strike, but the city kept picking up garbage in Midtown Manhattan. They picked up garbage in other communities, but they didn't pick up garbage in our community. They didn't pick up garbage on our blocks. So we decided that if they weren't going to provide us with the service they're providing everybody else, then we're going to shut down Third Avenue. That's what we did. Third Avenue was a major thoroughfare. Anybody going from Midtown Manhattan, going to the Bronx, or going up to Westchester, or going to the Rockland County, mainly came up the FDR Drive, or that was too packed, which was packed all the time. It came up Third Avenue. And what we did was say, we can't get service from the city, then we're shutting down the neighborhood. We're shutting down the blocks. As a 12-year-old, we were dragging garbage cans out in the middle of the street, blocking the streets, wouldn't let cars pass by. And at that time, the riot police would come by, and they would, oh man, these were the biggest cops I ever seen in my life. Oh man, these guys are humongous. They were, as a 12-year-old, man, these guys looked like they were all 6'8" and 400 pounds, all muscle. They would grab a garbage can and toss it to the side of the street, with one hand. And after they marched up Third Avenue, because we started probably about 106th Street all the way up to 125th Street, we put the garbage cans back out there. We were adamant about our civil rights. And for me, this was the beginning of fighting for the civil rights. This was an awakening for me as a young man of what the world was like in the city and in this country, and it was a powerful time. It was also an awakening because it was, really the first experience I had. Well, it's first recollection of the white flight. I had neighbors that were Black, Hispanic, Italian, Irish. We all lived together. We all lived together well. Some of those guys, they moved out to Long Island, and today we're still friends. But the reality is that their parents were able to move to federally built homes out in Long Island. I believe on Little Neck, they built over 14,000 homes. The federal government did, but they had a regulation that no Blacks can buy or rent in that community. This was the federal government. This wasn't individual homeowners. This was the federal government that instituted these laws for years. And you just become awakened to the reality of what our federal government was all about, and about keeping us oppressed and keeping us down. And so this was a turning point in my life, and I've been fighting for civil rights ever since. 1968 was a long time, but it seems like just yesterday. We will win the Holloman Report. Black and Hispanic spend $3 trillion every year. I mentioned that before, but we also have over 6 million businesses in this country. Over 6 million businesses between Black Hispanic community. So that means no matter what service you need, no matter what service you need or require, there's somebody that looks like you that has that business. that you can basically do business with. That you can basically do business with, just like every other community on this planet. Every other community on this planet does business within the communities that they live. You know, we don't have to do all our business with our communities, but we need to do the majority of our business with those communities so we can keep our community healthy and strong and financially secure, because that basically equals political power when you have financial strength. That equals civil rights when you have financial strength. If you have none of that, then you have no rights, and you forfeit your rights to somebody else because you always got your hand out, begging somebody else to help you with your day-to-day life. So we need to get better. I need to get better at supporting Black and Hispanic businesses, because that's who I am. That's where I come from. This is Ms. Anderson. She's a wealth empowerment activist. She educates communities on economic power. She spent a year traveling the country. A goal was to spend 75% of its disposable income, 100% of disposable income, with Black and Hispanic businesses. She's Cuban born and just an awesome individual. She also has a great book out that we all need to read and learn of her experience.
In the early 1900s, shortly after emancipation, believe it or not, Black businesses, the Black community had amassed great business power. We had Black Wall Streets, we had hospital systems, transportation systems, hotel chains, grocery stores, all kinds of businesses and professionals thrived. Hundreds of millions of dollars were created and circulated in the Black community. Unemployment was statistically insignificant. The unemployment gap between whites and Blacks in this country only widened in 1960 at integration. After slavery, more and more Black towns became self-sustaining until integration or until they were burned down by racists. Vibrant neighborhoods were bombed, set on fire, then looted. These people had their homes and thriving economic thoroughfares burned to the ground because they endeavored to be self-sustaining. Over 90% of the lynchings of Black men that happened during Jim Crow and Reconstruction were of business owners. What an awful paradox. We had, when we were politically disenfranchised, we had economic power. We took that economic power for granted because we needed to fight for our civil rights. Now we're politically free, but economically insignificant. That's a tough trade-off to make. Martin Luther King thought about that trade-off. Martin Luther King wasn't just fighting for basic human rights. He fought for Black businesses too. In a public address that he gave the day before he died, he said this: "We got to strengthen Black institutions. I want you to take your money out of the banks downtown and put your money into Tri-State Bank. We need to have a bank in. You have 6 or 7 insurance companies in Memphis. Put your insurance there. We need to have an insurance in." Dr. King died asking us to support these businesses, and we didn't, and they're gone. Those banks and insurance companies were the backbone of the Black community, and they're gone now. Now I'm asking you, how does that make you feel? Black or not, as Americans, how does that make you feel? Do you wonder, like I do, what would have happened had those businesses thrived? Do you wonder what Detroit would look like now if we had those banks and insurance companies? So I ask you, what are we going to do about that?
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. You know, one of the things in her picture there of Black Wall Street, 600 businesses within that community, churches. But what was striking was there were 6 private airlines. And that I got to look at that again. 6 private airlines. It blows me away. It blows me away. I was just talking a couple of months ago to a buddy of mine We were on 128th Street, watching some of the old guys play ball. And he was telling me that he has his own private airline, private jet. And so it just blows me away. I don't have permission to talk about it. So, at a later date, I would love to get him on a podcast and let him tell us about his Black-owned private jet airline business, which is awesome. This talks about American wealth. White community has over 90% of the American wealth. The Black community has 3%. Hispanic community has 2%, and others have 5%, which is all the other communities, Asian and Arabic communities. And what this talks about is that this is in direct correlation to how much money we spend in our communities. We in the Black community spend 3% of our money in our community, so we got 3% of the wealth. We in the Hispanic community spend 2% in our communities, we got 2% of the wealth. Okay, so it's not rocket science. So as long as we continue to give our money to somebody else, we'll have no money. That's just the bottom line. As long as we continue to want to be, as Chris Rock would say, every Black person has several white friends, and every white person has one Black friend. And we want to be that one Black guy or girl, or one Hispanic guy or girl that says, I'm different, I'm not like the others, whatever that means. Then we will stay broke. Our families will stay broke. Our kids will stay broke. Our grandkids will stay broke, and we will continue this endless cycle of tragedy. And that's why they call it the ghetto. It's not the first ghetto that's in the US. There's been ghettos in Germany, there's been ghettos in Europe, there's been ghettos in Africa, there's been ghettos all over the world since the beginning of time, because those in power know how to suppress the masses. And that's the bottom line. All right, now this talks about money we spend. We talked about the $3 trillion. Well, this is what $3 trillion means. We are winning the 5th largest economy in the world. We are winning, and we don't even recognize it. We are so far ahead of the rest of the world, and we don't even recognize it. We are bombarded every day of how bad things are in our community, how we're struggling, how we're in need of everything. But we have $3 trillion that we spend, and that means that we are the 5th largest economy in the world. But United Kingdom is behind us, India is behind us, France is behind us, Italy, Canada, South Korea, Russia. We spend more money than Russians. Can you believe that? We're one of the most powerful countries in the world, Russia, and we spend more money in the Black and Hispanic community. But unfortunately, the Black Hispanic community, we spend 3 to 5% in our community collectively. We call it, I call it Black to the future, meaning that back in the 60s and 100 years before then, we spent our money in our own communities. Like Ms. Anderson said, we had economic strength within our community borders. And we wanted to basically be accepted by everybody else. Understandably, because we're basically being oppressed and looted, and we don't want to get into all the, we know all the isms that were happening. So my goal for me personally is to spend 70% of my income in the Black and Hispanic community, probably within the next 3 to 5 years. That's my goal. And if we as a community collectively were able to do that, then we could take out 3 trillion to 12 trillion within the next 3 to 5 years. And then we could take that 12 trillion to 20 trillion to equal, as you see on the left hand, what the United States GDP is today. roughly. Okay. We can do it. It's right there. It's right there in front of us. We got it. We got this. This is already a done deal. All we have to do is wake up and smell the roses. That's all we got to do. We got to get up and find that business, that Black Hispanic business, and basically do business with them. Now there are going to be people that don't do the right thing. Well, that's okay, but that happens in every community. That happens in every community. But unfortunately, the only community that says the most ridiculous statement, I gotta laugh because I usually get frustrated when I say it. You know, it cracks me up. I say it frustrates me, but right now I'm gonna say it cracks me up. Every time I hear a Black person say, I did business with this Black business or this Black contractor, and they didn't do the job right. So I'm no longer doing business with Black people. I'm no longer doing business, as if that gives them a right to no longer, I'm no longer Black now, okay? One contractor didn't do the right thing. I never heard a white person, Asian person, Arabic person, anybody else in the world, never heard them say, oh, I did business with this white guy and he didn't fix my roof right. So I'm no longer doing business with white people. I'm going to forget about my community and do business with every other community other than my community. All right? I've never heard any other ethnicity say such a ludicrous, stupid statement like that. And that just shows that we still have slave mentality deep in our veins, that we still got to work out. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you, brother. I'm praying for you, sister. I'm praying for myself. Okay. That this is just, that statement is just ludicrous. So back to where I'm at. All right. So we can take our 3 trillion and basically spend it in our community, then we can grow our community. If we grow our community, you grow your family is living a better quality of life. And that means that our community is in a better quality and our country becomes stronger and our world becomes much better because we have some of the greatest minds and the greatest talents in the world in our community. We see it all the time. The creativity that we have, you know, because it's isolated in some areas, it doesn't get an opportunity to basically be exposed out there. My background is I'm an industrial engineer, and I've been in aerospace in military contracts for over 20 plus years. And there was no doubt that I was one of the best. No doubt. I remember, you know, writing on a program that I've written. And in the program I wrote, Lorenzo Alman is the best industrial engineer on the East Coast. You know, if I could pat myself on the back quickly, you know, when I was early in my career, maybe 2 years out of college, I was part of the Industrial Engineering Association. We used to meet down in Con Ed, down in Irving Place. And they elected me vice president. They liked me because I showed up all the time. And I was the young guy amongst all the old guys. They, you know, just like every place else, you see a young person that's hungry to learn. They went out of their way to educate me and to basically make me feel special. They did, and I appreciate it. And I was the only probably person of color in the group, but I appreciate all the knowledge and information they gave me. And in the sense that I took that and I did some good things in my industry. And what I'm trying to say might not have been recognized in the home, but at the end of the day, you know, we have so much talent in our community. So let's support our community and let's grow our community. So our kids and our grandkids can be the benefactors of the efforts that we put in. All right, now this is Shaquille O'Neal's house. And let me just walk over here. And I say, your family can live like Shaquille O'Neal. This is a beautiful mansion Shaquille O'Neal has down in Florida. And the only point I'm showing this is that thousands of families look like this. Thousands of families look like this. In our community, Black Hispanic community, we have, you know, several families that look like this. But if we basically supported our community many more of us would live like this. I can't wait to have a home like this. Can't wait to have a home like this. I work hard, and the bottom line, if you're a business person, why can't you live like this? If you're an entrepreneur, why can't you live like this? If you're a political congressperson, why can't you live like this? If you're a leader in your community, why can't you live like this? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You know? And so you can live like this, your family can live like this, your grandkids can live like this if we supported our community the way everybody else supports their community, because everybody else lives like this. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm a big basketball fan, and this is Shaquille O'Neal's indoor basketball court at the house, 6,000 square feet. I don't even know how big the house is. All I know is basketball court is 6,000 square feet. And that just excites me. Big basketball fan. Love to have something like this. Can't wait. Next 5 years, this is going to be, you're going to have, well, my nickname is Sleepy. So you have Sleepy's Inn, right there on the end of the court, right there on the end of the court. So can't wait. And the bottom line is that a lot of us can live like this. And let me just say quickly that I'm proud of guys like Shaquille O'Neal, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade just started his own TV show, the Williams sisters, we got J-Lo, we got her boyfriend, Hernandez, right? New York Yankee, former Yankee player. You've got all these great people that took their talents and built a brand. Now they're monsters in the business community. Just incredible. They didn't just shut up and dribble and go broke the way some people wanted them to do. They take in their talents, they stand up. When you have a chance, look at the Jim Brown and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Russell picture when they came to the support of Muhammad Ali. That's what our strength is. That's where our strength is, in our community. And when we support each other in our community, it strengthens all of us, because one day we'll all be under the fire. And without our community, we'll be lost, we'll be perished. And that's what they know. The one thing that blows me away is when Miss Anderson talked, she said 90% of the Black men that were and women that were lynched were business owners. You know what that says to me? That says they want to cut off the leadership head to keep the body suppressed and in chains, enslaved. And the only people that think like that are leaders, business leaders in the community and political leaders in the community. So I'm basically saying point blank, the only people that were thinking of lynching Black business people were Congress people, state representatives, judges, attorneys, leaders in their community that wanted to keep the masses suppressed by cutting off their head. Let's lynch these Black leaders who think they're uppity. Let's lynch these preachers that are educating these people, and we want to keep them suppressed. That's what I think about. And then I think of how these young men stood up during Black Lives Matter movement after George Floyd and said, I'm not going to shut up and dribble. I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. And I'm so proud of you. So proud of the whole young community that stepped up and came out to vote and came out and protested. I'm back from the 60s, so Black Lives Matter thought I didn't know where they were coming from, 4 or 5 years ago, but I see it clear now. It's a movement equivalent to any movement we've ever had. And we've always had movements because we're continuously fighting for our civil rights. And we continuously must fight for our civil rights. But I can tell you a shortcut is that you and I support Black and Hispanic businesses. Economic power will basically level the field of political power. Okay. And there was another point I wanted to make, but I'm old and kind of lost track of my thinking. So I'm just gonna move on. I'm quite sure it'll hit me shortly. It'll hit me shortly. But the bottom line I did want to make was, it was record setting. The young people that came out to vote during Barack Obama's second election, record setting, historical for young people of any ethnicity to come out and vote at that percentage. And that's why you see these state apartheid programs coming up. They've been working for the last 8 years because it frightened them back then. It frightened them back then that this could be even possible, that the country would vote for a Black man and let these Black people just feel comfortable enough to come out and vote. Do we need to bring back, the voting test, how many bubbles there in the bar of soap, and that only Black people don't have the answer to? I don't have the answer for that, but that's, that's what it's coming to. That's what it's coming back to. And we need to basically be ready for it. But I'm so proud of the young people that stepped up, and they're just amazing. I think, my grandparents was part of the greatest generation ever for what they went through. They bought property, all cash, wouldn't get a loan, fought in wars, fought in World War I, fought in World War II, fighting for everybody else's rights when they had no rights. And then come back and be spit on and disrespected. Let me move on. This is Mrs. Fudge. She's the HUD secretary in the Biden administration. Her goal is to create 3 million new Black homeowners by 2030. I think that's an awesome goal. Totally support her in that goal. Let's see what she has to say.
Congresswoman Marcia Fudge returns this day to her old district to address an old problem she is very familiar with, and now as HUD secretary wants to do something about: increase Black home ownership. The name of the forum, also the stated goal, 3 by 30, increase Black home ownership by 3 million by the year 2030.
We're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure that every single person has an opportunity to build wealth for their families. And Lisa, we're going to do it in a fair way. We have never fully embraced the Fair Housing Act in this country. Today, we're doing that.
When the American Jobs Plan came out, Fudge was one of the first to make the case housing is infrastructure. The White House claiming that 680,000 Ohio renters spend more than 30% of their income on rent. The initial Biden plan called for $200 billion to address the affordable housing crisis, money that is no longer there in the compromise plan.
Can we reach that 3 by 30 without that money in the American Jobs Plan?
John, I think that we can. David, I think their plan is very, very clear that it was not reliant upon the jobs plan. But I would also say this: there are other things we can do.
The seat Fudge left in Congress in March.
All right, that's Mrs. Fudge and her goals and objectives, which is very, very good. Awesome. The only problem I have with it is that whenever we depend on the government sets us up for failure. Yeah. This administration might have a couple of good programs in place, but guess what? There'll be another administration after this one. It might not be as kind or focused on supporting the working class families. So everything that this administration does will be dismantled. So we're constantly going through this yo-yo. And the politicians know it. We're going through this up and down yo-yo. Okay, we're looking for some good things from this administration, then they basically put a couple of things in place, and then we'll promise something in the near future, and then the near future comes another administration, which could care less about what you were promised. And we're still waiting for our 40 acres and a mule. Wait for that administration to come back, 40 acres and a mule. The bottom line is that we can't depend on the federal government. The federal government is not our friend. They work for us. They should be, they are accountable to us to basically be equitable and fair with all the things that we need them to do. Equitable with the taxes that we spend, and equitable with the opportunities that should be created, and equitable with justice. That's what they should do. We do not should depend on them to build wealth for us, because they won't do it. They have not done it. They've always done the opposite. They opened up the West, and everybody, including advertised in Europe, for people to come over and claim land for free. I wish I had the number in front of me. How many acres you were able to claim when you went to the West? I think it was something in the nature of, I want to say like some crazy number, like 150 acres, but it's probably maybe like 40 acres you can claim. 40 acres, just stake it and say, this is yours. But they banned it from being accessible to Blacks. Everybody could come, advertise overseas for Europe to come and get some free land. But you Blacks that were enslaved, and now that you're free, you are banned from owning land in this country that you built. You indigenous Americans, indigenous Indians, even though this is your land, we're taking this land. And you're not allowed to touch any part of this land. We put you in your reservations and you need to stay there. Matter of fact, we're basically dismantling that property as they set the laws up to open up the West. Okay, and it can go on and on and on and on for the last 200, 400 years. All right. So the Black homeownership rate has persistently lagged the white homeownership rate. Currently, the Black homeownership rate is the lowest of all racial groups, standing at 41.8%. Blacks have been the slowest to recover from the housing crisis, which is the 2008 housing crisis. I remember reading a statement that if you were a person that made over $200,000 a year, you were more likely, a person of color, you were more likely to get a subprime loan qualifying for a mortgage than a white person that made $30,000 a year. And you were more likely to get a subprime loan. Okay. So it had nothing to do with the fact that you're a doctor, lawyer, or Indian chief. It had to do that you were a person of color. All right. Now, when I look at this 41.8%, I say point blank, I'm shocked that it's that high. I'm shocked that after all the oppression, the burning down of Black Wall Street, and the thousands of other communities, such as Black Wall Street around this country, that we're at 41%. I'm shocked that the hundreds of thousands of individual Black homes that were looted and run out of town, that we're at 41%. I'm like, I'm amazed. I'm so proud of my grandparents. On both sides of my family, my grandparents own their properties. They own land, they own acres of property. I remember going to visit my aunt one time. Uncle's, it was actually my uncle's mother-in-law, going to visit her. And we spent the night in Rocky Mountain. And when we got up, she was fixing breakfast, good Southern breakfast. And she asked me, I guess I was fairly young then. She asked me, stepped out and said, you see all those trees over there? And it was a distance away. I said, yes, ma'am. She says, I own every blade of grass from here to those trees, 77 acres. And all I can think of is, holy cow. Holy cow, this one individual, one elderly lady owned 77 acres. She knew it down to the blade of grass, what she owned. She knew what she owned. It was amazing. It was just amazing. I'll never forget that day. Never forget that day. She owned it. Okay. And what I'm saying is that my grandparents owned acres and acres of land, acres and acres of land. So when I look at 41% now, there's no doubt in my mind that probably from the early 1900s to maybe 1950, 1960, that the Black community owned about 75 Black families in the US were about 75% home ownership. There's no doubt in my mind, because I remember growing up in Harlem and, those long summers, when I was 5, 6 years old, my mother used to drag us down south. We had no choice. We had to go with her, me and my youngest sister. She always took us everywhere she went. So she would go down to visit her mom, my grandmother, grandfather, and we spend some time down there on their property. And then the same thing with some of my friends, where you going? Oh, I'm going down south, for a week or two. So all of us had grandparents that lived in the projects in New York that owned acres and acres of land. And some of my buddies that from Puerto Rico, that we were a mixed community growing up, it was the same thing. They were going to Puerto Rico for the summer, going to Puerto Rico for a couple of weeks with their mom, their dad. And they were going to their grandparents' homes, their grandparents' properties. So there's no doubt in my mind that we were at 75% home ownership. So getting back to 75% is no big feat, because we've been there, we can get there. All we have to do is focus on how we want to achieve that. How can we achieve that? How do we implement the GI Bill? Maybe we need to pressure Congress to say, you refuse to give my grandfather and my uncles and my family members access to the GI Bill when they fought in World War I, they fought in World War II. Now you have to give it to their ancestors as compounding of the debt that you owe us. We did everything that everybody else did, but they got their 40 acres in New York and we didn't get ours. So we're not even talking about slavery. We're talking about post-slavery, the theft of property, the theft of our time and energy, and basically the abuse that we had when we went and fought for everybody else around the world and then came back and had our property stolen from us. So it's not whatever they call it. I'm not even gonna call it anything. It's a debt that they owe and they need to make whole. All right, so moving on. We look at states with the high Black home ownership. And this goes back to the fact there's no doubt about it. As an engineer, I know numbers, I know statistics, I know how to project, I know, this is something I've done all my life, working career. When I look at South Carolina, currently 52% of Black families are homeowners in South Carolina. 52% of Black families in Maryland, homeowners, in Mississippi and Alabama, and Louisiana and Georgia and Virginia. And that basically says, look, my parents ran out of Virginia, ran out of North Carolina. They couldn't, my mom had access to probably about 20 acres of land in Virginia. And she refused to let any of her 5 siblings had one cup of dirt from that. Her mindset was of all the racism and suppression that she experienced growing up in Virginia. She didn't want any of her kids experiencing that because she didn't see any changes every time she visited her parents down there in Virginia. She didn't see any changes, and she didn't want any of the kids. One of my siblings wanted the property, and mother just refused. They refused. She wouldn't put in their kids in that environment. Right or wrong, but that was their mindset. I'm not even gonna tell you what my other grandmother told me. I can't. I'm not even gonna mention that on there. But anyway, when you look to the left, moving on. When you look to the left of this slide, it goes about the top worldwide home ownership rates. Mauritius, 99%. And I'm just gonna stop right there. Mauritius is a country off the coast of South Africa. It's an African country. It's African and Indian mixture. And it's a beautiful island. And the mere fact that every time I looked at a chart, it would say it's either number 1 or number 5 as far as home ownership rate. I'm gonna take the one that said number 1. All right. So it's just mind-blowing that you have a country where we're from. I'm claiming where we're from Africa. 99% of families own their home. You know, me and my buddies, we play master basketball tournaments, and we plan on traveling there November 22. And I can't wait to go there. Can't wait to play and against some of the teams from Africa, and I can't wait to do some clinics with some of the young people there. But I can't wait to just walk around the island and talk to families. I might just do some door knocking. I hope it's not illegal by then. Do some door knocking and ask them, how does it feel to be a homeowner? How does it feel to be a homeowner? Yeah. 99, and they'll probably look at me like I'm crazy, like that's the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. We're all homeowners. We all own, small or large, we own our homes. The roof over your head, the floor under your feet. It's just incredible. I can't wait to have that spiritual moment. I just can't think of anything else to call it. Now, on the other side, the bottom worldwide home ownership rate is a country that's wealthy, beautiful. Switzerland, 38%. Germany, 41%. Australia, let's stick with Switzerland and Germany. Now, this is a cultural thing, that it's not a major issue to those communities of being a homeowner. So I want to dig deep into that on a future podcast of why those numbers are and what's the mindset of those communities. Okay, but the bottom line is coming back to, there's no doubt in my mind the Black Hispanic community, we're at 75% home ownership. And for us to get back there is no big deal. So we can do it. This is Mauritius in Africa, #1 home ownership, 99% worldwide. Beautiful island, beautiful island. A lot of people go there to get married. It's a picturesque location. There was a movie, I think it's Love Story or something like that, in that island. And it's just a beautiful place. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it. This is just one of the hotels and picturesque. And this is some of the young people that love the game the way we love the game. And we can't wait to go have some clinics down there and work with them on some fundamentals of basketball and understanding the business side of basketball. I'm so proud of a good friend of mine, Earl Monroe, former Knicks, Baltimore Bullets, Winston-Salem's greatest. You know, just with him about a month ago at the Basketball Hall of Fame, where we honored one of his best friends, his former college roommates, being such a pioneer in Masters basketball. And just seeing where he just opened a school, and it's going to focus on the business side of sports and sports business, which is mega quadrillions. So that's just unbelievable, and love the fact that he's doing something like that, just so amazing. Now, this is one of my favorite slides. All right, this is when I warm up. I've just been warming up. I can't wait to do a podcast just on this slide itself, the theme on the slide. Black on Black crime starts when you and I don't support Black and Hispanic businesses. We will win. Black and Hispanic, $3 trillion is welcome here. It's welcome here. Welcome in this store right here. You can bring your business here. Open for business. See, Black on Black crime doesn't start when a young person commits a robbery or an assault on another individual, in a sense. It starts when you and I, the profession, the people that basically made good money, don't support Black businesses the way other communities support their businesses, where other communities support opportunity in their community. See, they support their community, so their community is able to hire their young people. A 14-year-old can walk into a local store in another community and get a job, in the butcher shop, can get a job in the flower shop, can get a job, to cover him for the summer or her for the summer. But in the Black community, it's not there. What are we doing? We're putting our hand out, waiting for youth program, Job Corps to come and give our kids a job, while we go down to Bloomingdale's and Macy's and all these other places where we spend our money in other people's community, and they support their community. They take their money to their community and spend it in their community. That basically hires their kids to do all these, jobs. So the kids are not stressed out. The kids are not basically starving for a couple of dollars in their pockets. Now you come back to our community, a kid gets out here in New York in June, but he in the school, he enjoys himself for about 2 weeks, and then he looks around and sees he got no job. It might be in high school, might be in the 9th grade, 10th grade, whatever grade, and he's got no job. So now August comes, he's been just hanging out in the neighborhood for the whole summer. And the dog days of August kicks in. And guess what? Somebody has a great idea. Well, let's go downtown and hang out. And then the trouble hits. So it might be your child with a couple of other kids, and it might be just one kid decides he's going to basically take something that's not his. Now, your kid is part of that. Your kid is part of that. It becomes acceptable to them, or basically it winds them in trouble. Why? Because there was no opportunity. There was no job for these kids to basically do while they're burning these teenage energy, I love the fact that, I used to run youth programs in my community when my kids were young, because in my mind, I said I had to put an umbrella around my community to protect my kids, and along with my neighbors' kids. Okay. And then I would ask buddies of mine that lived in, say, hey, why don't you help me with this sports program, or this entrepreneur class, or something of that nature. And they were saying, plain and simple, look, man, I take care of my kids. Let somebody else take care of their own kids, And then I would tell them simply, if that kid that's on the fringes, don't have a dad, mom's on crack, if he gets in trouble, if he grabs a gun, he starts firing, guess what? That bullet's got no name. Your kid, my kid's out there, just having fun, just hanging out, just playing in the park. You know, guess what happens? You know, kid could be at home doing homework. Guess what happens? You know, because we're not protecting our community. You know, we're only as strong as our community. You know, if you lived in Shaq's house and you're the only person that has that kind of income of color, guess what? Your neighbor might be cool, but there's dozens of those other neighbors that are coming down the block. And hey, I'm not knocking your neighbor, but he's trying to protect his family. So guess what? They're harassing you. You know, roll back 100 years, they'd be lynching you and your family if you're not supporting your community. All right. So, you know, black on black crime, you know, like I said, I'm an engineer. I know numbers. I know cause and effect. I troubleshoot problems all my life, maybe in the manufacturing area, but the same thing here. That kid picked up a gun because you didn't support the community. You want to spend all your money downtown and look good coming uptown. While the businesses in your community that could hire the kids in your community are basically starving and going out of business. So you and I are responsible for the black and black crime, you know, not the 12-year-old. When our kids turn 14, when all kids turn 14, the crime rate goes through the roof. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, all kids turn 14, the crime rate goes through the roof up until they're 25. It's like, you know, you have to lock in on everything to support that age group from 14 to 25 until they become mature enough and focus enough on building a quality life for them and their family. Those kids on the fringes, man, they could cause trouble. But some of them could be Einsteins in the making if we just supported our community. So let me move on, and I'll save my fire and brimstone for when I do a podcast just on this topic. This doesn't help. Race back to slavery. When I first put this title in, I was like, this doesn't sound right. But now I says, this is exactly what it is. We are racing back to slavery. Based on how we spend our money, we will have zero wealth in the Black and Hispanic community, roughly about 2060. By 2060, another 40 years from now, we will have zero wealth. So that means your kids and my kids will have zero wealth. Your grandkids and my grandkids will have zero wealth. And when they have zero wealth, they have zero power. And when they have zero power, guess what? They have zero rights. Zero rights, zero, 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 zero. By 2060, 200 years after Emancipation Proclamation, 200 years after Lincoln created Freedmen's Bank. Check this out, Freedmen's Bank, I believe it was 1864 or 65. From 1864, 65, Freedmen's Bank, which was created by Lincoln to have a bank for former slaves to basically be able to save their money and would be able to give them loans and things of that nature. From, let's say 1865 to, I believe, 1874, 75, when the bank went bankrupt because it was even staffed by Blacks, but it was owned by whites. And every time the Black community put their money in there, the whites were loaning to their friends and their buddies for all kind of crazy projects. Okay. All right. And it's estimated that based on today's dollars, that 70,000 Black families put in about $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion. It blows my mind that in today's dollars, let's say 5 years, 10 years after, but 5 years after slavery was ended, that these families started saving $1.3 billion. Wow. If the government would have did right for them, they would have insured that money and at least put it into, let's say, a government bond. And if they had a government bond, roughly would have been about 6% over the last 200 years. So that means that if no other penny was added into it, that money today would have been left for their children's children would be roughly about $25 billion from slaves. So slaves, people that came out of slavery, that were still technically mindset slaves, even though they were free, will have more money saved up than you and my grandkids will by 2060, 200 years later. 200 years later. Now, there'll be a few of us that have money and we're well off. But you know what happens when that happens? When the community is broke and the community has no power, the community has no rights, guess what? The mob will come burn your house down. Just like they did in Black Wall Street, just like they did in hundreds of thousands of individual Black homes where doctors and lawyers were living well and they were itching because they say you shouldn't be living that well. And especially in today's climate, oh my God, will they not come after you and your family? Because you and I refuse to support our own community. It makes no sense. History will show that we made no sense. We made no sense. Now, I look back 1960s when we had Black businesses all throughout my neighborhood, and now they disappeared. And I look at that garbage strike as being like a demarcation of white flight and the destruction of mom and pop businesses during that time. And I can get into it, and I will get into a future podcast. And it was all government implemented. You know, it's all government program. This is like the master program that these racists sit up there in Congress and think of. Now, just because we have a few people of color in Congress and a few people of color in the White House, don't think that the masses of people in power there are not putting programs in to hurt you, plain and simple. If you're dependent on the government to solve your problems, you got big problems, mental problems. All right. So on that, I'm gonna move on, and I can beat this dead horse over and over again. But the bottom line is we need to support our community. Like I mentioned, Black Wall Street was created when O.C. Curry and his family bought 40 acres, roughly in 1900, 1901. By 1906, I believe, they elected their first mayor, made it a town. And by 1921, when it was bombed and burnt to the ground and property stolen, as it's been stolen for hundreds of thousands of families throughout this country. It was 15 years from 1906 to 1921. 600 different businesses, 21 different churches in that community, 6 private airlines in that community. In 15 years, they created hundreds and hundreds of millionaires, hundreds of multi-millionaires. That's why the community outside of that community was itching to come burn it down. They were living too well. They were living too good. It just burnt their backsides to see Black folks living a quality life. No better, no worse than anybody else, living a quality life. And, but my point is that that's how quick we can get this thing going. You know, the title of this podcast is 13 Months to Prosperity. We can get it done like that. We got all the money, got all the know-how, we got all the knowledge. All we have is, you know, we have to pray that God basically cleanses us from the poison in our minds that we're not good enough, or we're not as good as, that we need to give our money to somebody else. We need to not trust our brother and take it to the master. That's what it comes down to. We're still in that mindset. We all have a little bit of this, I believe, and we need to purge it. And we need to basically focus in on supporting our community. Otherwise, you might live well, but your grandkids gonna catch hell. You might live grand, your kids, and your kids gonna watch your grandkids suffer because of our arrogance, of that we're better than our community. Now, it's not gonna be easy to build our businesses back, even though we have 6 million of them. But is it worth it? Is it worth it? If we get up to $20 trillion in the community and we spend 70% of our money within our community, keeping our community strong, then that means we're giving other communities $5 to $6 trillion every year. That's amazing. They're only getting $3 trillion from us now, all $3 trillion that we have. We're giving it to them now. But we gave them $6 trillion, they wouldn't be upset. And we kept 14 for ourselves. We wouldn't be upset. Nobody would be upset with you. You can do it. You can do it. Man. You can do it. I believe you. I trust you. I believe in you. You can do it, man. So on that note, let me keep it moving. And let's get ready to wrap this up. These are wealth builder legends. This is the son of Mr. Earl Graves, who the founder and CEO of Black Enterprise, who's been a staunch leader in the Black community on creating Black wealth and building Black businesses. And let's see what he has to say on this topic.
The name of this is called the new, parentheses, Black America. What the hell is new?
Everything old is new.
And so when you hear that, should we be saying, as opposed to trying to create something new, trying to come up with this sort of new paradigm, is it a question of saying, no, do what we used to do moving forward?
Yeah, I don't think the focus should be on, quote, creating a new Black America. We have to look inward at ourselves and decide what are we prepared to focus on that we can fix amongst ourselves, as opposed to looking for someone else to try to fix the problems for us. And the reality is that we have become dependent upon looking for the government to solve challenges. This is really not complicated, folks. We have the wealth within our own community if we would simply start to invest in our own businesses and do business with ourselves. We focus on, at Black Enterprise, our mantra is wealth for life. The biggest gaps we have in this country is not the education divide, it's not the digital divide, it's not the insurance divide, what have you, it's the wealth divide. If you in fact have wealth, all of those other things you have. And we have that wealth within our own community if we're prepared to invest back in our own businesses. But as I speak to groups all across the country all the time, I say to them, let's look at other communities. In the Jewish community, the dollar turns over 6 times before it ever leaves. In the African American community, it doesn't turn over even half, meaning by the time it lands, we're spending it somewhere else. So stop looking at, we got to create programs and other things, and this is a complicated thing. It is not. You need to decide, I'm going to take my money that I've earned, I'm going to find the black auto dealer, I'm going to find the black dry cleaner, I'm going to find the black investment banker, I'm going to find the black whatever it might be, and I'm going to put my money in with them. That's not isolating us, that's protecting ourselves. And that is reinvesting in ourselves. That's what has to happen. So it's not a new plan, it is taking the plan and doing something with it.
And Tom, the reality is that their government does serve a role, private serves a role. Look, 1973, Maynard Jackson.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up. What I honestly believe is that we will win. We will win. We have all the resources we need. We have all the money we need. We have all the geniuses that we need. We have the strength and the desire and the capability to basically get this done. What we don't have is the trust in each other. That's what we don't have. And that's just a little brain fog, that we have. I'm praying that we clear the fog in our brains, that we stop chasing wanting to be the one Black or Hispanic person that honestly the white people like. I remember Chris Rock making a comment one time, a comedian. He was saying that every Black person has several white friends. They have probably 100 different white friends. And every white person has that one Black or Hispanic friend. And so there's always that one guy that want to be the one friend to the other communities. Like, I'm different, I'm not like the rest of them, whatever they consider the rest of them to be. And so we work hard on selling out, basically. Let's call it like it is, selling out. Right? So I pray to God that the Lord focuses us. The Lord lets us know that we are just steps away from the promised land. That crossing the Jordan River, that every vehicle is in place for us to achieve financial independence and community strength for us, our kids and our grandkids and our future generations to come. Everything is there for us, but we have to do it, and we have to do it now. Like I said, we're racing to zero wealth. We're racing to basically poverty. There hasn't been a time period where a ghetto wasn't formed somewhere in the world, where the greed of a few want to enslave the masses, and every ethnic group is basically faced that. Black, white, Jews, and Gentiles, Arabs, and Asians. Every ethnic group is faced it somewhere in history. And so I'm praying that God opens our eyes and shows us that we can achieve the promised land for us and our family. And in return, it strengthens the whole community. It strengthens our country, and it strengthens our world as we basically step into our greatness of the people that we are. We come from a strong people. Like you said, going to Mauritius, I can't wait to get there. Can't wait to feel the vibes. Can't wait to soak the ground. Can't wait to talk to the people. Oh, everybody's a homeowner. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up. My name is Lorenzo Howman. I would love to have the discussion with you on what we can do, what we need to put in place, and how we need to do it. I don't need to hear any negative crap. I got enough negative crap to last a lifetime of why we're where we are. Need solutions. And I'm an engineer. and I need solutions. Yeah. It's like, we want to build this car. Tell me what you want to put in the car for Black prosperity. And let's basically get this thing going. You know, time is fading. You know, I'm in my 60s, and the last 40 years have gone in a blink of an eye. And the next 40 will go even quicker. And so let's get this done. I thought I could chill out and let everybody take over, but the bottom line is that, hey, I'm gonna use my last breath to achieve these goals. It's the only thing I can think is worth fighting for. I got nothing else to do other than, you know, I don't fish. I play ball, but I don't fish. So to basically work with young people on becoming entrepreneurs, work with young people on becoming engineers, work with young people on becoming the great men and women that they're capable of becoming. That's Black, white, green, orange, it doesn't matter. You know, that's where I want to spend my time. All right. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's take it serious. Let's do this. It'll be a challenge, and there'll be storms that come to us, and there'll be personal attacks that come at us. But who the hell cares? What else we got to do? It should be fun. All right. On that note, you can look me up, Lorenzo Holloman, on my Facebook. You can look me up, LorenzoHolloman.com. You can look me up, hoopsandhomes.com. And you can look me up, and Lorenzo Holloman on on Instagram. Instagram is Rennie Holloman. Somebody else have the same name. But LinkedIn, Lorenzo Holloman at LinkedIn. Look me up. Hit me with some of your thoughts. You know, let's talk. Would love to have this conversation. If I'm just talking to myself, that's okay. You know, I'm my best student anyway. You know, every time I talk, I think of something else. So on that note, everybody have a blessed day. Much prosperity for you and your family. And I'll leave you with my favorite quote. You know, walk with faith, not with cash, because it goes a lot further. Amen.